Hi, this is Tim Motzer. Welcome to another Searching for Sparks. Tonight, I'm really honored and happy to have a bandmate on, one of the great drummers on the planet, and that is Kenny Grohowski. And we play in two different bands. One is called PAKT, P-A-K-T, with Percy Jones, Alex Skolnick, myself, and of course, Kenny. And coming up, we have a trio version because Alex is out touring with Testament. So Percy thought it would be better for us to continue as a trio. So that's what we're doing. And we have 3 shows coming up, and we'll talk about that as well. But without any further ado, let's bring on Kenny Grohowski. Hi, Kenny.
Sir. Lovely to see you.
It is so good to see you always. Yeah. Yeah, how you doing, man?
Fried. Good. We had the show last night with Similacrum and Snarky, so that was pretty fun. And actually that we went over very, very well. Like, it was fascinating to see a lot of the front stage. Oh, sorry, my contact is getting really weird all of a sudden. It's perfect timing. But it was, it was nice to, see the interaction of that audience with that music, because there were some heads there for sure. Everybody got messages afterwards. Like there was a few friends that were in the audience who were like guys who know that music and know that band. But for a lot of the bare core fan base, they may have they are aware of somebody like a Zorn or people of that generation and that ilk.
Yeah.
But that's not an audience that's natively going to seek out that music. Like they're not going to show up at Bruce's downtown music gallery, right? You know what I mean? Like they're not like that's, but they were very welcoming. It was a really awesome reaction, like right out the gate, like just right out the jump. It was really, really welcoming and it was fun. It was very, very fun to actually especially what that band represents, for a certain generation of musician that was like, okay, I went through the institutionalized aspect of music. I was in music school. I studied. I went to conservatory. How do I break away from how do I bend and break these rules as all my heroes taught me? How do I find my voice, and how to do that in a time where, when bands like that started, you had fusion bands, but you couldn't be a fusion band. You couldn't call it fusion. Fusion was the F word. I mean, which was the biggest shock to me moving to New York City from Miami, where there is actually this very deep history of great, not just jazz players or Latin players, but fusion players, like Joe Zawinul, like a lot of his syndicate guys, right?
Sure.
He was plucking people from that circuit, not just Jocko,
Yeah.
So it's like, to move to New York at a time where it's like, oh, this music is like, you could do it, but there has to be this other accoutrement musically or culturally or in some sort of promotional way to sort of slip it in that this isn't Chicory Electric Band knockoff or like a Weather Report knockoff or
Exactly.
Especially and especially early on when I was working with some notable jazz players who also had these fusion projects, but just seeing how hard and difficult it was for them to, book festivals, book tours, even just regional tri-state stuff, and these are guys where I was coming up as a kid, it's whether it was Lonnie Plaxico or George Colligan or Andy Milne, it's in Miami, growing up, it's oh my God, these guys are, it's you dream of playing with people on that kind of level.
Absolutely.
Then to get a chance at, in my case, it was almost always like a substitute, but just to get the opportunity, you get your foot in the door as a young player who's from out of town, that was really huge. And just to see how much crap those guys caught because they just wanted to do the music that was natural to them from the time, what Lonnie taught me was you have to honor the past but you have to take it with it. You have to take it with you into the future, and you got to also bring your time with you. Whatever's around in your time and your culture and where you come from, you can't just abandon that too, because that's part of you. And that was always evident in his music, the Midwest funk, soul, R&B thing. It was always very embedded in a lot of his composing and his groove writing and his orchestrations. But then like all that modern jazz and modern classical stuff that he was really getting into, and especially being a proponent of M-bass, it was like...
Exactly. I was just going to say, like, if we rewind all the way back and you're talking about the word fusion, I don't know if it was called fusion back then. You know, I'm thinking of Weather Report's first album and when Mahavishnu came out, and, you know, that period of time, kind of all people that came out of Miles, you know, in the 70s. And we're talking Bitches Brew and Live Evil and those records being huge albums. But then as we keep going, then we have like M-Bass, as you mentioned. I also think, you know, like Jack DeJohnette's bands that he had, you know, with Greg Osby, and you know, everything was going down a lot of streams, a lot of paths. And
for sure.
When did you come into New York? For what year was that again?
I moved to New York in 2001 in August.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was really good timing.
I like that. 2001.
Yeah. No, it was. It was. I graduated that year from high school and thankfully got into new school, like on a not, it wasn't a full scholarship, but it was a good enough scholarship where it's like, okay, you know, it'll be a while, but I could pay off the loans of what we can't afford to shell in. So it was, and my family, like, they were really supportive. Like my stepdad went, I won't spill the beans, but I'll just say he went very above and beyond, like way beyond what he should have, to make sure I got to New York and got to school. So,
what a beautiful investment into you, you know, and really that's what it is. We're investing in our future potentiality, you know, in something like that. And, you know, it's always crazy, but New School at that time was an amazing place to be. Yeah.
No, I was really fortunate to be there at the time that I was there, because, you know, you had like the people who were kind of like they were graduating or already had since graduated, or in some people's cases, let me come back for a semester just to finish up a credit so I could just get the graduation and move on. But it's like, again, these kinds of musicians that I'm talking about, like they almost didn't need to do that. They were already
in it.
Their star was rising, and not in the superficial idolatry sense. I mean, in the, like, their music was being realized because they had been paying those dues, and really, you know, like, I'm being very coy because I don't want to be disrespectful, but it's like this one New School musician I'm thinking of in particular is super, super famous now. And I remember when I first moved to New York, going to his jam session to check it out, and, you know, just to expose myself to what this scene was about. And there'd be nobody there. And it was like, nowadays when you hear that music, it's always a packed house and the baddest motherfuckers playing this band. And it's super popular. Like, it's super popular, but like, you know, 20 some years ago, you'd see these bad motherfuckers playing this like crazy thing and like grooving their asses off, and nobody's there. It's like, it's me and like 3 other jazz dorks who are in their undergrad trying to get hip.
Dude, what was New York like back then, 2001? I mean, I was getting up there to some degree, but there was a lot more venues at that time.
I mean, there were, and not just, you know, metal was kind of tough then, like the rock and metal stuff, like, you know, you had, you know, Continental was still going over in right on Astor Place. Like that was still a thing. CB's was still like at the end.
CBGB's.
Don Hills was kind of like another place. Acme Underground was another place. And there was a few other smaller venues at that time that were like, you know, would be willing to do rock and metal, but quickly, like, that started to change. Like the more extreme musics were actually getting pushed out to the boroughs. And especially too, there's always been like kind of it's not the same now. It's more integrated, but for a long time when I first moved here, there was this sort of divide between like the uptown scene, like especially for like metal, like kind of Bronx, Queens, going up that way. Like that was kind of one scene, but then you had like the Manhattan, Brooklyn kind of thing, and then Staten Island, because L'Amour's was long gone, and there was another club that was there that was like a local spot, but it never really, there was never like a place like L'Amour's, and I missed it. Like that was already gone by the time I moved there. They had moved to Brooklyn, and then it closed.
One thing's
But
for sure, it keeps changing, and it always has. You know,
what I do remember from it though was, this is like 2000, right? Like 2000, 2001. So you still, you still have like the sort of 90s mentality, and and not just in a technological and societal sense, but the music scene still had a lot of that 90s energy, but it didn't have that sense of 90s danger that you would hear about, or even on some trips you would see as like a teenager going like, okay, yeah, there's some parts of this place that are still fucking rough.
yeah,
But there was still like a vibrancy, and it was normal. Like once you got into like the kind of gigging scene, let's say, whether it was like the jazz thing or club dates or singer-songwriter stuff or cover bands, whatever, or the blues thing, there was actually still like a small blues circuit that you could
yeah,
play around. There was a few clubs.
yeah.
Like where Zinc Bar is now, that used to be a place called Bag It In before that, and they used to do like a lot of like, I used to play with a few blues guys there, and like, once you got into that circuit, it was kind of normal that you would have, like, if you were working, you would have like, maybe 2 gigs a night, and you'd go hang at like a late night somewhere, like at Zinc Bar on Houston or some other, or like 55, or
55.
one of these other places, and
Yeah.
you would hang,
Yeah,
and it's,
that's what it was about.
and it would be packed, like that was the thing. It was like even music where it's say, oh, this wasn't like, oh, this is the cat to see. There was just like people were out and about more. Like
Yeah,
once society got more sedentary in as a whole, like just across the board, that's still a thing now. Like there's still shows that get packed, and it's a hang and it's a thing. But it's, I play with a lot of like very brilliant local people here who've been in the scene for a long time, and still it's very hard for them to have an audience, or it's like there's like 30 people, 40 people in a place that fits 100. You know what I mean? Like,
it's hard.
and it's like, man, they've been plugging away at the scene for a while, and there's like a lot of names in this band. You would think it would, but it's different now. It's very,
Different.
it had, things have to be trending, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because there's a lot of great music happening still. It's just newer bands and newer artists, because the shock of the creation of Napster, the signing of NAFTA, and the Patriot Act, right? Like they were birthed and grown in that world, in that system.
Wow.
They didn't know life before that. So everybody who understood and was trained on life before that, whether you were very young or seasoned, that was a massive shock, because the early 2000s, that's the age of the 360 deal. You no longer get a cut of the bar. It's either a guarantee or a cut of the door. If you're playing in rock, punk, metal, or any of the underground musics, even hip hop, guess what? It's going to be a 6, 7, 8, 9 band bill. However many people we could fucking fit. Everyone's got to sell tickets in advance. We don't give a fuck who you are. Where you have to be your own booking agent. You got to be your own, like, and that was something I was starting to realize with a lot of these older established musicians. It's like, now they have to find management. Now they have to find a booking agent. Now they have to find all these people, because they were part of a system where the generations before them, there were people there to do that. If you had succeeded and you were successful, a lot of that started to evaporate with the rise in the consumer hyper global capitalist movement, what global banking cartel shit that we live in now. Like everybody had to learn how to figure out how to do everything on your own.
Everything.
And so I feel like that first wave of people, the guys that had like either the business acumen, or they were organized, or they were focused, or they survived, and it wasn't hard. They survived a lot harder than their previous generation did. And they were still mentored, and they too were still mentoring. Like I was lucky. I was mentored by some really great musicians, and still learn from those things that they taught me then. Like still, like with Lonnie and Andy and Zed and now like with Zorn and these other people, I still learn. Trey, I'm still learning from these people
Forever.
from lessons they've taught me 10, 20 plus years ago. Sanabria, all these people, like their words, their wisdom echoes. And I was fortunate, because they were having to figure it out for the rest of us. So now you have this new generation where it's like, yeah, we were born in the matrix. We realize what it is. We know how to navigate this technology. We know how to navigate social media. like the ones who are serious and focused, you know, and then there's some who are, you know, they're focused on this other thing, right? Like, and that's this sort of rise of what we call influencer, where it's like, this is not really this isn't about musicianship. This is about instrumentalism, you know, and that is the sort of age that we've lived in. And we've always had this, right? You know, we've always had a part of the music industry where it's like, here's these famous instrumentalists, unbelievable. They are so gifted at what they do, but it's not like the sole purpose of what they're doing is expressing anything more than what can we do on the instrument. It's a different type of visionary. It's a tactile visionary. It's how efficient can we make the machine? How many possible things can we do? And then from there, what could be musical applications? And whereas these musicians who are incredible musicians, but it's not coming from this place of being a fantastic instrumentalist, even if they do fantastic things with their instrument because they have a unique technique or a unique approach or a unique style or something that is so uniquely them, but it doesn't come from a refinement or evolution or improvement on standard methods and practices. And I
go ahead.
And I in both, but I think oftentimes people confuse the two things.
Yeah.
And they're not the same, and they've never been the same. I mean, there's the people you got to put in the magazines, and they have to endorse the product because they're going to sell the most units.
Yeah.
And then there's the person who writes that song or that riff or that solo that the whole world needs to hear. And both those things are valid, and we need both of those people, but they both live in a different place.
That's really true. What I was going to say a minute ago is it made me think back when I was living in Dayton, Ohio, and I was just finishing up school. And I'd be in the library, and I would always get the Village Vanguard, or the Village Voice, sorry. And I would turn it to the back, and I'd see who was playing. So this would have been like 82, 83. And I'm looking, I'm like, oh my God, such and such is here. Jack DeJohnette is there. Blah, blah, blah is here, you know. And I said, I can't wait to go to New York, you know. And when I finally made it to Philly, I think it was 86 or 87. And I started coming up to New York on the regular for the first time. And I was hanging, and I was going to all these spots, the original Knitting Factory, different places like that, all the spots. And I could see all these people play. And the thing that I was most astounded by was everybody was unique. And everybody was trying unique worlds of music. It wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like a thing. I mean, you can mention a genre, like, blues artists, but within blues, each blues artist was completely unique to themselves.
True.
And you know, I just saw so much of that, and it was like, oh, in New York City, this is where you can do your art, whatever it is, you know. But then as we move forward in time, you know, everything, I mean, even like, you know, we were talking about fusion before. I was talking to Percy the other day, and he goes, yeah, you know, when Product came out, they turned us into two bands, and they wanted us to be more commercial, you know. And, you know,
waves.
Yeah. And Don't Make Waves. And it was just hilarious. That was 78, I think, you know. So, you know, the move to commercialism was happening. But then when you think about, you know, Sonic Youth and some of those bands that in the 80s, you know, 1980, New York City was really interesting because people were really struggling for art and, you know, and running to their door to get in before they got jumped and stuff like that, as you were alluding to.
Yeah. I mean, let's put it this way. A good chunk of my family left. So yeah.
Beyond struggling.
Yeah. But some amazing shit in a lot of different scenes was taking place, and even stuff that
amazing
only got championed amongst small populations, like from top to bottom, left to right, in every diagonal. There was that amount of metaphysical strife from like a societal level to a street level to a more macro level. It really, you know, people took that energy and they ran with the ball, and there is something to be said about that, you know, that because it's like if that energy, if that doesn't get dissipated, it just compounds and you build compression, and that becomes a problem. So it has to blow off somewhere, you know. And
as a musician in Philly, it was kind of confusing because, there was great shit happening, and a great jazz and great R&B, and there's some rock and roll happening in the underground, but there was also like cover bands and just all kinds of things like that. And it was like, well, I don't want to do that. I want to do original stuff, and that became the great struggle, was like, what is this all about? And like, when you're coming up, what is it all about? We want to play, but we want to create, want to make stuff.
I mean, that was the fortunate thing at that time, like those early 2000s, because especially, with all the like neo soul that was happening in the 90s and how that just exploded all over the world.
Huge.
There was a large scene, especially in the early 2000s and late 90s in New York, with all these different like neo soul and R&B and like psychedelic soul artists who were like
Philly too, right?
Yeah. And I found myself in that world early on. And a lot of that was, it's how I met Lonnie. I met Lonnie in this, it was with this singer named Some. And I was playing drums with her at that time, as like I was kind of filling in for the original drummer, and then started to do a handful of shows. And, that was for a while, and made friends with that band with a lot of the other members. But I was sort of, again, I was still like, I was still living in Abounding Grace at that time. So still in church and still doing gospel. So I was still like in that mindset and language of playing. So it wasn't like, oh man, like I don't know any songs. Like who's this? Who's Marvin McQuitty? What? Like it wasn't that. Like I would say that's it. But but I was new to New York, so it was like meeting all these people and realizing like, okay, these are actually like some of these guys were Midwest people. Like they were like Illinois R&B musicians, and it was so great. Like because between Lonnie and then these other guys, it's like like Ohio funk is different than like Bay Area funk is different than New Orleans funk. It's different. You know what I mean? It's just all these. And when you get exposed to this stuff, it's like you see the through lines, but you see how everything waves off of each other, and how those cultural, environmental, and historical influences really shape the sound, even if it's the same groove, even if it's the same rhythm or the same chords. They sound so different from one another. The feel is so different, and it was such a great like education and exposure, because these were sort of like my outside of school. These are like kind of like my early music friends, and it was a good time. I miss those guys, but everyone's busy and doing well and living other places. Like I know one guy, Dave, who I played in his rock band, and he was very helpful and instrumental, and just reminding me, just like, yeah, Phil Rudd's a great drummer. Like you can think about him what you want, but sometimes that beat really works. You know what I mean? Like just in my rock band, please just do that. You don't have to play in 13 over this.
Absolutely. That's a big thing to learn, Space is the place.
Yeah.
Ringo Starr, the right shit. Whoever it might be, name your drummer.
Yeah. And especially then too, because it's not like I couldn't, like in certain contexts, it was always like, oh yeah, just I think I'll play groove. It's fine. But in other styles, like especially in rock, it would always get very boisterous, and it was like great because it's like we're recording for the album, and it's like no, we need to really get like more like this Jim Keltner vibe on this song. Yeah. You're thinking like real big high rock energy because you're listening to Dillinger Escape Plan and Meshuggah now, but that's not what I want. I want Salt of the Earth. I want 70s. I want 70s rock drums. You rock guys who grew up on R&B and blues, not you know what I mean? And it was great, like, because it's like
that is really great. That's how you learn, though, and eventually your aesthetic sensibility informs you probably now, like what the music actually needs.
Yeah, and it's funny because nowadays it's like all the music I'm doing, a lot of the bands I'm in now, it's the moments of playing, let's say, more simpler or more just common beats. It's very rare now.
Very rare. Yeah,
it's extremely rare, but at least it's I can't complain because it's I'm able to live playing music with like really brilliant and wonderful people, like like the band that we have. It's where it's like you walk away from the experience. It's not like it wasn't like, oh man, this is a great gig. It was like, no, you walk away uplifted and fulfilled and inspired, and people like people walk away from our shows. it's the most important part of what we're doing, I think, with that band. And it's something that only being there, I think, you people finally get and understand that what that is.
Yeah.
You know, and I really do feel like, I know I've said it a bunch of times to you, like face to face, even with, I'm pretty sure I had my contact rolling around in my eye then too. But yeah, we're just gonna do it like this. This is gonna be like this for today.
It's fun.
But you know, like most people in their lives, they don't actually witness individuals coming together as a whole and working things out in real time.
Yeah, it's really
and
true.
Making it work, and actually making a sort of like something simpatico. You know, what most people see is conflict, debate, what they call debate, but it's really just muckraking and arguing and yelling and being stupid. I'm trying not to curse today, but
you're welcome.
They're just being profoundly ignorant, let's just say, and I'm not going to like point fingers because I don't have enough fingers. But you know, instead of witness or people presenting conflict, people presenting strife, people presenting, you know, even if it's, you need to know this, or maybe you don't need to know, it doesn't, regardless, it's that a lot of people in their lives, they're being shown this a lot. Like when they're driving in traffic, they're seeing how people drive now. You know, when they turn on the news, or they go on social media, or they go on whatever they go on in their day, or their job, or their commute, they see what they see, and they don't often witness people working things out and something beautiful coming out of it.
Yeah.
And even musically, like in a time now where more and more and more bands are going the route of utmost streamlined, perfected professionalism, where you will have less and less actual sound happening on stage. Things will be gridded, whether they need to be or not. Sounds will be generated, whether they need to be or not. And you could choose to listen to the other musicians in which you are making music with, or not, and still perform your show, your concert, your job at 100% perfect capacity, and that will be accepted, and it will be great and awesome. But yet, it's a diminishing return.
Yeah,
it's a diminishing return, and for and again, like, not to harp on snarky, but like, you know, I amps on stage, people had fucking monitors, people are listening to each other, not to a track of the album with the other instruments, or I just need to hear this and this, and I'm gonna cut. Like, no, they're like, I watched them work out on a monitor mix so that everybody on stage can hear everybody as best as they could. It wasn't like, oh no, I only want to hear this and I don't want to hear. No, they're actually, what they need are side fills. Actually, they need side fills, because that's what their monitor mix is, basically a full band mix. So they need side fills.
There you go.
Because they want to hear each other. And again, it's like, you know, it's a different kind of music, different kind of world. But it's like, you know, I see so many bands that are like, no, I don't actually need to listen to the other people on stage. I just need to hear this click track and the bass and the keyboards from the album. And I know too many bands that do that. And again, I'm talking about musicians who are amazing.
Sure.
Like, amazing. This isn't a situation where it's like, these are people that can't play and it's like they got to fake their way through. These are all like badass motherfuckers. And it's, but that's the pressure that everything and everyone is in right now, you know, because of this current model. And I mean, I know that's a whole different other tirade up there.
Well, you know, the thing with PAKT, PKT, what's interesting too is we have a new release, and I've been spending a lot of time with it this week, listening over and over and finalizing the mix with Eric. And you know, when it all got done, I laid in bed and listened back yet again, the final thing, and I was just so taken by how we're all listening. Yeah. And allowing space and allowing things to happen and dropping out, and all kinds of things would happen. But it was such a beautiful interaction, and it was all improvised except for two pieces. Yeah. There was some kind of basic structure on one piece, and another one is just 6 chords that is in a cycle that Percy
reharmonizes.
He reharms.
He does. He's dropping low bombs that are just like, wow, what is that chord now? You know, and putting melodies across it, and what you're doing orchestrally with the drums to build that track. It's so gorgeous, and it's exciting to hear this, because the thing is that it's exactly what you said. We didn't know what we were going to play when we walked on stage, except for those two pieces. We knew they would show up, but everything else just happens, and it's almost like we're in a spell. Yeah. And we may not even feel like, well, I hope that was good at the end, but the audience is like applauding and going nuts and just loving all of it. But getting
once
to hear
the music leaves your body, it's not yours anymore.
Yeah, once you get a chance,
once the note's been played, it's gone. It's not. Yeah. Now it's out in public.
It's gone, and it's just like a painting. You know, it's like, don't fix the mistakes. That's part of it. You know, and the thing is that for me, it was like, wow. You know, this is the music composed or not? Because when you hear it back, it sounds composed.
Yeah.
You know, like, wow, great arrangement on that piece. I'm like, what?
I mean, it's the power of listening, and I mean, obviously we're far from like the only groups that are out there doing like a lot of like largely or almost completely improvised musics, but you know, this is hearkening back to, again, you were talking about like the movement coming out of like the late 60s and going to the 70s.
Yeah,
there were so many times when these musicians, right, when they were, you know, going free and just letting things happen, because they're coming out of this tradition of having to listen and communicate in a time period where there were far, far, far less external distractions from just being cued into where and when you are and with whom is around, or, you know, with whom you're with. Sorry, I'm like fucking losing my mind over here. Yeah, it was a late night. That was a late night.
Oh man, you've been working, dude. Come on.
Yeah, no, but there was a little bit of time off, at least, thankfully. I mean, it's, you know, it's been a wild roller coaster since, but at least like I've been home, you know, which is good.
Yeah, it's like a slingshot to another city and back.
Yeah, I mean, which was with yesterday's show. That's what was like weird about it. Was like, oh, it's a load in where the opening band. But it's like, you know, it's a national venue. It's a union house. It's like, you know, the whole day I'm frustrated. I don't have like a info sheet. I'm just being annoyed. Like, but it's like, it was like going like right back into work mode. You know, I got the flip and my lanyard, and it's just like, okay, well, let's do this. All right, we're building. Talking to the stage manager, and just, all right, let's do the rundown with monitors. It was nice. It was nice to get back into like that kind of headspace and work mode again.
Yeah.
Especially like, I mean, like, you know, Medeski, you know, he this was his gig. Like, he was totally like taking care of all the booking and all that stuff. But at least for like on ground and gear, it was like, oh yeah, we're backstage. Let's do this.
This might be a nice time to talk. I have a bunch of questions for you. One is your musical relationships with various people that you play with. And so John Medeski, talk about how that relationship has come together, both musically and just as people.
I mean, that's really just through, a lot of it's through Zorn, you know, even though he too is a South Florida guy, you know, he's that's the thing. It's like, there's a lot of people from Florida that you would not even realize they're from there, but they grew up there, or they were born there, or played the circuit. You know, like went to U of M.
Did he know you were from South Philly, or South Florida at the time that you started?
Say again?
Did John know that you were from South Florida at the time you started working?
Yeah, no, we talked about it because, you know, just getting to know each other. And I think, if I recall, I think Zorn might have mentioned like, yeah, Grohowski's from Miami. You know, but
that's amazing.
Yeah, I didn't know he was from down in Broward either.
I didn't know that.
But yeah. But it just goes to show there's more cats than you realize. But yeah, no, we started working together because Zorn had approached Hollenberg about starting a band, like, because Zorn was a really, really big fan of the band Cleric, which I know, you know, it's a lot of like, it's like mostly a Philly band. I know the drummer's from New York, but the rest of the guys were from Philly. I mean,
Yeah.
easily, hands down, one of the best, progressive metal bands in the last couple of decades, easily.
Yeah.
And you don't have to take my word for it. You can take Mike Patton's word for it, and I'll speak for him. I don't give a fuck. He can bill me. I'm kidding. He's a sweetheart. But anyway, Zorn loves this band. It's one of his all-time favorite metal bands. Like, he really holds them in high regard, and he'd always wanted to do something with Hollenberg, like something that was like kind of catering to his metal sensibilities.
Yeah.
But he also had this idea of doing like a Tony Williams kind of Lifetime Emergency kind of thing.
Okay, I get it.
Because he wanted to do more stuff with Medeski, and the idea came about of putting together this group. And at that point, I'd already been working with Zorn through Abraxas, which was the second volume of Masada, the Book of Angels. It was volume 2.
Wow.
I mean, Masada 2, Book 2, volume 19. That we were volume 19. Yeah, there was, I think, 20 something in the Book 2. But that was a band that was comprised of Shanir Blumenkrantz, who was the kind of band leader, de facto head of the band, and he played bass and gimbri or sintir, depending on but he played the bass sintir, like he would use it as like a bass ultimately. And then also on guitars were Eyal Maos, a really, really fantastic Israeli-born guitar player who's lived in New York for a long time and has a really cool band called Edom, which is like, it's like doom noise. Like it's sick. It's because his pedal shit is unreal. Like, he really is a very singular voice with sounds and glitches and it's, his feet are very busy. Like, he's just like, his feet are just moving all over the place and he's doing things and it sounds awesome. And then the other guitar player was Aaron Bajikian, who was Lou Reed's last kind of lead guitar player over the last few years when Lou was touring. And he did a few other things like in that world, like kind of like, I think he used to play a lot with like Sean Noonan, the drummer, and also with Sean Lennon. He's like in that kind of like,
okay, got it,
kind of like avant free world, but he's also like in the rock world. But again, another amazing, soulful, really, you would love him. He's a really beautiful heart, really gentle guy. Lives in Canada now with his family. They have a few kids, and his wife has a professorship up in Vancouver. So, they're living up there, and
actually.
So since Zorn didn't have a lot of guys to surmise, he didn't have a lot of guys in his roster that did double bass. So I kind of got picked to kind of do it. I mean, it's not true. I mean, Tyshawn can play double bass. Joey Barron has played double bass. He doesn't like to play double bass. He only did it for Naked City because, John made him. But it's like he doesn't practice double pedal. Like, he doesn't have a double pedal. Like, so all the double bass you ever heard him do, that was him learning in the moment. He just pulled that out of his ass, which is worse. It's so much worse because it's like, I remember first learning how to play metal and how long it took me to play a fucking proper blast beat that didn't sound like dog shit. How long and how embarrassing it is. He's like, I'm a professional musician. I've been playing this shit I've been playing drums for, I can't do this dugga thing. Trust me, it was, and then he just pulls it out of his ass because, Zorn is freaking out and they're recording.
Wow.
It's impressive what he did in that band. But,
Joey is no joke.
Yeah, and Tyshawn too. Tyshawn also plays double pedal. Like he plays. Like, I know
Tyshawn can do anything.
Yeah, but he does actually shed it though. Is what I mean. Like he like he has a double. I think he has. I don't want to speak out of turn. I think he said he has like a 9,000 or some sort of DW at home. That's his pedal. But he has, like, again, he has one. He plays, like, I know he can play some Meshuggah tunes that he's like transcribed and shit.
Wow.
Yeah, well, he's a savage. I hope he's well. I haven't seen him in a while.
Wow. Well, okay, so Medeski, that came out of John Zorn.
Yeah.
And how did you get into John Zorn's world?
Well, that was through Abraxas.
Okay, that's how it was.
Yeah. Shanir was putting that band together, and originally the idea was to have Hamid Drake on drums, which...
Oh, yeah.
would have also been really amazing. You know what I mean? Like, especially like Shanir and Hamid together is like a very, like, that's a really deep groove. Like Shanir is one of the most unsung bass players, period. Really. Like, if anybody has ever wanted to hear what I could really do when I'm totally unencumbered and I'm not worried about like losing people with time, or I'm not worried that people are going to like fuck up the beat or not know where one is. If you want to hear what I can do, hear it with that guy, because you can't face him. I've tried every fucking Ari Honig super rhythmic imposition pyramid thing that I could fucking throw at that guy and try to seek it. Will he lose? He never once in all the years we've toured and played together. It's like, I can play anything I dream of, and it just happens, and it makes sense because he's there, just salt of the earth, grooving it out. You know, but
I asked a bass player one time, Ben Baccardo. We were in a band with Ari, and Ari would go off, and sometimes he'd be like, "I'm a 16th back off of you guys," you know, and he would be doing all these permutations nightly when we would play. And I said to Ben one night, I'm like, dude, how do you stay so locked in your groove? He goes, I don't listen to Ari. That's what he said.
Yeah.
I don't listen to him.
I mean, that's ultimately like a very easy way to do it. And that's what Shanir told me. He's like, listen, I just ignore whatever you do. I let you say what you have to say. And then when you give the cue, we move on. But you know what? It's nice because more often than not, it's like in a band setting. And that's something I think that is actually something that's lost currently, because everyone is playing to a click. So drummers can play all this amazing shit that, frankly, drummers have been doing for decades.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I mean, a lot of guys now, like, they remind me of the people I grew up, you know, like guys like the late Frank Katz, or, you know, and God rest his soul, right? Like Rodney Holmes. Like, I remember listening to his fusion shit in the 90s, or Sean Rickman in the 90s, right? Or, you know, and Dennis, like hearing how these guys played and what they were able to do with beats and or Vinny, like the kind of rhythmic permutations and super musicians Vinny would do, but he never lost the band. He never lost the band, and nobody had a click track to help them keep time. Nowadays, a lot of modern bands are kind of forced to be human click tracks for the drummer's greatness. And if they don't have that, you know, it's like now you don't have the show or the music or whatever, and
they
it's
don't
like
have a dialogue with the drummer, essentially.
Yeah. And the drummer is expecting that the band now is going to keep perfect time for them while they just chop out and shred and show everybody how great they are, and you know, and that's fine. But for me, it's and I think what, you know, again, what my mentors instilled in me was like, it's great that you have all that ability. I'm not telling you to lose that shit. I expect you to have fucking chops on my gig. I expect you to be able to play. I didn't hire you because you're a chump. But if you get in the way of the music, or if you get in the way of the other musicians, then you're not cutting the mustard. You're not serving what you're supposed to be doing. And it's not about the role of being a rhythm section player. That's expected of all instrumentalists, right? If you're getting in the way of the music or the other musicians, or even just the people in the audience from enjoying what's happening or getting what's happening, then you're not in alignment with what's happening. So I've always adapted my language, my ideas to the people I'm playing with. Like if I know, you know, like with Percy, right? I know there's certain things I could do that I can't do with other bass players because he hears those rhythms. He hears that phrasing.
The way you guys
or with Felix
is insane. I get to hear that every once in a while when we play, and I'm just like, holy shit. And I just, you know, it's on this new release. You know, there's just things that happen and it's magical. But it's a language that you guys have because you've played together so long.
Yeah, for sure. And or like when I play with Felix, it's like there's a certain language and rhythmic thing that we can do together that's very synonymous and very beautiful and special, but it's different, you know, and I'm catering to his rhythmic sensibilities, his phrasing, his ideas.
Exactly.
You know? And that's, I think, something that I've always aimed for, especially as time went on in my career. And it took me a very, very long time to kind of realize, like, it's okay if you adapt yourself to the situation.
Yeah.
You are still you. And I think a lot of musicians, especially younger musicians now, there's this fear of, well, if I don't play like this on the gig, if I don't have this sound, if I don't have this particular instrument, am I really myself? Am I really giving the audience or the band what they need? And it's like, well, you can. It might be something different. You might be you might be out of a spice in your spice rack that night for dinner, and you don't have time to go to the market and get the fucking basil. So you gotta make it work. And it's gonna still be great because you're making it with the honest intention of making a great meal. And I think if musicians, now that things have become so professionalized and streamlined in the music world, when you start to bend and break those rules a little bit, you can introduce presence and freedom back into the experience.
There's a lot of drummers we could talk about, but getting back to Vinny for a second, I saw a clip. I've seen Vinny play a lot with Jeff Beck, and there was a clip recently where, Jeff's playing somewhere and he's out front and Vinny is going off, and Jeff's always swinging and looking back at him like, where are we? But Vinny's always setting Jeff up the whole time. He's always, no matter how far he goes out, he always comes around setting Jeff up, and Jeff always knows where it is. And, that's a thing too, that, it's just amazing. Like, do your shit, but we're still all together, And
especially too, when I think of like, whether it's like, even with soloists, like whether it's you or it's Felix or Richard Padron or Matt Hollenberg, whoever it is, it's, more often than not, I'm playing with a musician, not only that I have like admiration for or care for or love for, but you're doing the things that I wish I could do. Like, not to knock what I do with drums or percussion or what I do with music, but I've always loved other instruments. I think maybe more than the drums. The drums is where I live. It's home. It's what I was rooted in before I had a choice. I didn't choose it. I had to do that. If I could have picked another instrument, I would have, but it wasn't. It's not. It's drums. So I get a chance to like help shape something around people who are playing ideas like I wish I could dream of. That's a blessing. That's a gift. And I think a lot of people have to really start to, if they want this world and this music thing to get better or be more real, like you have to go there. Especially maybe not so much with other instruments, but I feel like, again, as a rhythm section player, somebody where it's like, drums right now are a zeitgeist instrument. We're allowed to shine. We're allowed to play in ways now that when I was coming up, you would be fired from any gig. You would absolutely be fired from the attitude that a lot of people have, the mindset people are coming with, the being focused on getting the right camera angle, as opposed to, are you playing to the dynamics of the room? Right? Yeah. Like, instead of these things, and I know I'm saying this and people have heard me play and be like, dude, you play pretty loud. So I get that, but it's a difference between playing loud music and quiet music loudly.
But you can play very dynamically. There's evidence of that all over the place.
Oh, of course. But it's because it's like I'm in a place now in my life where it's like I'm trying to make music now. Like, there was a point in my life where I was like trying to, and every young person does this. You have these ideas, you have these concepts, you have your heroes, you have the people you admire, the stuff you study and practice and shed, and you're aiming for this thing, and you're trying to nail it and trying to get it. And then you get to a place, right, where you're just like, oh, okay, well, what else? Like, why am I doing all this? And luckily I got to ask that question early on in my life. I think I've always been
doing this. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Why are we doing this?
I mean, literally, I on a very base reptilian level, I have to. It's the only thing I have any sort of training and expertise in. So if I stop doing this, it's going to be. There's not a lot of other avenues to pay rent in New York for me. It's this or bust at this point. So I'm glad I'm doing it, making mostly weird music. I don't play in a tribute band. I seldom play weddings anymore, even though I do miss that. Like, people probably think I'm fucking full of shit, but I like playing funk and groove and Zeppelin and fucking, and even the fucking, like the Orthodox Jewish weddings, that shit is fun. It's so crazy and wild, and there's so many rules, and it's so OCD and anxious, but the music is so much fucking fun to play, and it's so challenging. Like it's like
Yeah.
way harder than a lot of other shit I've had to play, because again, you're coming into a world, you're coming into a culture, coming into a history that as a complete outsider, you know, like as somebody who is not initiated, is not aware, and you get a chance to really observe like a different way of seeing, thinking, feeling, experiencing music, and still meeting fantastic musicians. Like, you know, like the world is full of fantastic musicians.
Yes.
And it's only because of the hierarchical idolatry materialism matrix that people think there's only a pinnacle of greatness. People don't understand that the true pyramid is upside down. Greatness is expansive. Greatness wraps around. Greatness brings in. It doesn't isolate and make it a pinnacle finite point. That's, I hate to say it, that's antagonistic energy. I would say something else, but I don't want to offend people. I want them to hear what I'm saying. But that's finite. Greatness is the number one. It really is the loneliest number.
Yeah.
Like the guy who's the richest person on the earth, he's the loneliest person on the earth. We live in the evidence of it right now. The richest person on earth is the loneliest person on earth.
Yeah.
It's the only person who truly does not know himself, and the price to be paid we live in. That is when people say working on yourself is a bunch of bullshit, those are demons. And I don't mean in a biblical sense. They're demons. Don't listen to them. That's bad juju. That's bad advice.
Man, you know, that dropped a thought into my mind that took me all the way back before I played guitar. And I remember as a kid just hearing bands and listening to records and loving music so much that I really wanted to pick up the guitar. And one day I did start, and I just started like, wow, if I could just learn some chords, I could probably play in a band, and I would just be so happy just to play rhythms in a band. And that finally happened when I was in like, you know, freshman in high school, and got to play. And then one day the other guitar player said, "Hey, Tim, you play solo on this." And I was like, how do you do that? You know? And he showed me a blues scale. He goes, just play these notes. And that was the beginning. And, you know, the experience to me of being in a band was like, wow, I'm in a band. It's a bass player and two guitars and drums. That's so badass. And it just goes from there. But, you know, when you think about the very first time and how magical that is, or even the jamming at that time, you have no idea what you're doing and how magical that was.
Man.
That's still a thing.
Oh my God. Man, yeah. The last time I saw my mom and stepdad visiting them, my mom had found in one of the storage boxes a cassette tape of one of the first jam sessions I did with like high school buddies. So it's like myself and Richard Padron on guitar, who's back in Miami now. He lives there. And our friend Leo Brooks, who's this fantastic bass player that's down there. I think he's still touring with Pitbull, but for a long time he was working with Pitbull and he was like doing that. But he's, I mean, wow. Monster upright and electric player. Like he was like, of our generation, there was like, you know, there was like certain musicians like him, like Obed Calvaire, Addy. These were like, you know, like in South Florida, like everybody knew who these guys were. Like they were like badass motherfuckers. And, like, you know, back then I didn't smoke weed, but for sure Leo and Richard got high. And then we just played like Song for My Father for like 20 minutes. But like Richard was like trying to get into like doing like, he was at that time he was like really, really deep in like the traditional shit, like really like going through like all the great guitar players and the great piano players, doing a lot of like, you know, like transcribing Tristano and applying it on guitar and, you know, shit like that. So like this session was like, no, I'm gonna have like a distortion and chorus and delays. It's gonna have all these pedals. And Leo brought his 5-string, and we're just like, and they're fucking blazed out. And we're in my bedroom, just, you know, recording to like cassette, like 4-track. Like
that's
and
the
it was
shit.
like, you know, and I was already doing church at that point. So like jamming and you know, descargas and, you know, like jams was always like part of music for us culturally. Like, it wasn't out of the ordinary, but that first experience of like, oh, this is like a band with my buddies and we play, and then sometimes we do shows around town where, like, you know, it would usually be playing like Richard's original music and maybe some standards, and we would just like book gigs and try to like cut our teeth against the other, you know, either like U of M bands or like the other, like, you know, professional Miami musicians. And it was, yeah, man, when you think about the, like, just seeing the cassette tape, just seeing the physical tape was like, fuck, man, that was such a special time. Such a special, that brief window of like having this little like space to just be able to, like, you know, for me, like, make music outside of church or school. That was just us. It was just you and your friends. Like, well, what do you sound like when there isn't somebody telling you what to do?
Yeah, there it is.
A lot of institutionalized musicians, right? That's a lot of their life is being told what to do.
I agree. And I still love the other way. It's like, let's make some shit. What's blowing us out? Like, what are we into? You know, and everybody that you play with, it's a different chemistry, you know, and different kind of music's happen because of that. Different cultures, different cities, different whatever. I just love the interaction, and it's a lot like having a chat, a language. You know, having this conversation with you reminds me of being in the front of the van driving through Canada, because we would be in the van for like hours driving, and this is what the conversation was, or some other subject matter. You know?
And then Alex would probably be either reading a book or listening to a podcast. Percy's in the back. You think he's just like spacing off, and meanwhile he's like looking at telemetry data, looking at weather forecasts for the next several days. He's like, it's doing like brilliant people shit in the back of the van, and nobody knows about, and nobody's smart enough to understand what he's talking about.
He's so funny, man. I was talking to him today, and he's like, yeah, I was working on this mix last night or whatever he was doing, and he needed a reverb on it. And he has a PCM 80 Lexicon.
Nice.
And he goes, I suddenly started smelling this burning smell. And so I pulled it out of the rack and opened it up. And he's like, oh, the capacitor in there was all burned up. He goes, so I just changed the capacitor out. It worked. You know, I'm like, Percy's repair shop. He's like, sometimes.
I mean, he has a master's in electrical engineering. You know, I'll never forget. I mean, I know you know the story, but I'll never forget that first time I edited a research paper for him. And I was just like, oh, okay, this is like for his like your shorthand radio stuff. Let me see what this is about. And I opened it up. I'm like, oh, this is like a peer review study. Oh, he's fucking brilliant. I only understand the language. I actually don't understand the math that he wrote here. I don't understand what it is. I just know that the formatting's are, this sentence is a run on. Okay, we're missing a punctuation here. Like, you know what I mean? That was it. You know, and you know, when you talk to him, you can always get the sense that there's a very quiet brilliance to him. And because there aren't a lot of people in his life that are interested in the subjects that he's interested and can talk about them at least with any sort of expertise and at length. You know, it's like I hang with him as much as I can, and he meets me halfway with the astronomy stuff and some other things. But, you know, he knows that there's a certain point that I can't go past, because then the knuckles start dragging and I'm drooling. Because, you know, like,
or he tells you he's testing out different antennas, you know, and things like that. Or, you know, there's so many just amazing stories. Like he has so many stories. He's like, I sold a CD on ham radio last night. And he goes, it's easier on Facebook, I think, because he's doing Morse code.
Yeah.
You know, Percy is amazing. And, you know, you've known Percy and have played with Percy longer than I have. I've been listening to him since I was 15. And the first record I heard was Unorthodox Behavior. And I think I got Livestock soon after that and was just like, what is this shit, you know? But you started playing with him when? When was that?
Let's see. They started doing the touring like late 2016, I think, is when they did the first incarnation with Kenwood.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then I came in 2017.
Yeah.
And we had met years before that. A lot of the first time we met was actually, I mean, not to be too somber, but it was shortly before my dad passed away. It was the first time we actually met. We hadn't played together or anything like that. We just were introduced to each other for the first time. And I had always seen him in passing in New York City, you know, in the past. You know, I mean, there's one particular gig that he's a great anecdote about that was like actually the first times we really crossed paths. I was playing a show at Bowery Poetry Club. We were playing with the early set. I had to bring a kit. I had a small, like, you know, like a travel kit. So I needed to get going, so I couldn't hang. But I realized when I'm kept packing up my stuff, Percy was at, you know, kind of in the back waiting for us to clear the stage. And I said, oh my God, it's Percy Jones. And then a short while later, the drummer that was, I'm gonna forget his name, Walker. He was a young guy at the time. He was playing in Tunnels. He was
Mallets.
I can't think of the guy's name from Tunnels because there's all these other thoughts crossing my mind, and I'm trying to keep
You're talking about the mallet player?
Wagnon. Yeah, Mark Wagnon, when he had the band Tunnels.
Yes.
There was at a certain point a younger drummer came in. I think his name was Walker something. He was a young guy, you know, good drummer. But I saw him come, recognized him, and it was, so I see Percy and or Walker, and they're waiting, and Mark hadn't showed up yet. But apparently that was the gig, because I stuck around for like sort of half of the first song, and I was like, well, I can't stay. I gotta go. I gotta get my gear out of here. I gotta get to another thing, and I got a whole fucking drum set with me. So I'm gonna split. But you know, it seems okay. It sounded okay. It wasn't really all that great. It was kind of like, it's nice to see Percy, but this is whatever. Supposedly later in that set, Mark had like projections and all this like crap and all this gear and all these tchotchkes and all these things, and he was having all these technical problems. And in summation, I think at one point, like his entire the melodic cat and the whole thing, just the rig fell off the stage, like clang in the middle of this whole thing. And Percy's just there like. So I would have loved to have seen that, honestly, but it's nice to hear Percy tell the story because he tells it eloquently.
Absolutely.
But we met officially. It was on a gig with Felix.
Oh wow.
We met at Zinc Bar. He came to see Hipster Assassins play.
That's cool.
And it was around the time like when my dad had passed away, and I remember at that time, you know, after the fact, like Percy had you know, he had gave, like, because he, you know, he had gone through something similar, and I remember he gave some advice that was like somber advice, but he was correct, you know, and in the long run, it's helped me kind of deal with that kind of loss, because especially losing my dad, really, it shifted my life in a very drastic direction, and not really in a great way. And I'm lucky that I had somebody like Julie in my life, and a few friends, you know, at the time, like Jim Robertson, or like Alex Cohen, and a few other people, where it's like, you know, not to go on a rant, but like, you know, that really, if it wasn't for them, like the headspace I was in for those years following, I think, you know, a lot of the opportunities that then came along, like stuff with Zorn or stuff with the Secret Chiefs, or I think a lot of these or Imperial, like I think a lot of the bands that now I'm sort of known for and been doing, like, I don't think they would have happened, because I saw like the bands that I was in when it happened, and how those bands, like my own form of like kind of falling apart and struggling with like the loss and just, you know, everything that was happening in life, like how do you rebound from that? You know, those bands all fell apart. You know, we're all still friends, a lot of us, but you know, those bands, like everybody gone. And they were great bands, good music, but you know, it's when somebody's really struggling with something, it can really, if one person in a band is really struggling with something, it can really pull down the whole thing. And if you have other people who are then starting to struggle with things, and there's no leadership and there's no direction, and the vision gets lost, that, I mean, for every band that I'm in that has, you could say, is like succeeded or is known, or I can name 8 bands that were just as talented, had just as good music, were people that I was like dear friends with, that it's like, oh, these are the kind of people I would love to be on the road half the year with, because these are my brothers. sisters. Yeah. But those bands didn't work out because either myself or somebody else or us, all of us didn't have our shit together. And let's be real, with musicians, that's it's really not uncommon for musicians to really not either emotionally or professionally or to have your shit together. And right. And especially now, like we're in an age where finally we're in a place where like people who are maybe say like non-neurotypical or suffer from things like bipolarism or any sort of like mental or spiritual or emotional affliction or disease or just having a different mental modality. Because I really don't see, I mean, I understand like there are forms of autism where it's like you could see like, oh man, this person can't, they're barely containing in function, and you could see in their eyes that they just want to be able to sit, but they can't. But then there's all these other people who have ADD or ADHD and all this stuff, and it's like all the people I know that are like this, they're brilliant. They're brilliant, hyper intelligent, hypersensitive, hyper creative, hyper gifted. When they focus on a thing, my God, most of the things that everybody enjoys are made from people that have some sort of thing that, oh no, you got to take medication, you got to do this, and you got to do that. You're the weird one. And it's like, no, this is the gifted, talented person who's doesn't really, their biology is telling them, I must do something. I can't just sit here for 8 hours and stare at a screen. That's I'm a cog in a wheel, and I'm aware of it, and I don't want to be. That's what I see, especially having so many friends that are, diagnosed with this stuff, and how they grew up like in the 80s or even in the 90s, like here's all these pills, here's all these medications, which now we know after the fact that, oh, this was legalized methamphetamines or legalized heroin that was sold to us by chemical companies. Oh, now we know the truth. But look at how many generations of hyper brilliant, talented, gifted people who are drugged, given narcotics so that they can function, so that they can sit in a room for 8-9 hours a day and not interact and not be themselves and not ask questions and just ingest what they're being told as though it's an indefatigable truth, and then regurgitate this shit so that you can get the number can go up, so you can get the thing, so you get the job, so that the number can, so everybody's numbers can keep fucking going up like this is some special magic, and it's like, it really did a lot of damage to people. So I'm not surprised that this country had an opioid crisis, because I grew up in the generation where everybody I went to school with was on some sort of fucking pill, and I never understood why did they needed a pill.
It's always something.
So they can concentrate. It's like, well, maybe if school wasn't a fucking boring scam, you can get people to focus. Maybe if you instilled a quest for knowledge, a thirst for understanding the world, instead of like, learn these facts or you're a loser, maybe you wouldn't have to medicate kids to shit.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest crime. It's like medicating brilliant kids who are just who they are.
Yeah. And I mean, there are some people that they're like spazzing out, and they physically are like, it looks like they're having I've seen those kinds of kids too, where it's like, okay, yes, this person needs something. They need treatment. They need care. They need caretakers, obviously. But I mean, I saw so many, when I speak to Hollenberg, like he was one of these kids that like very early on, he was put on the, like, if it was Ritalin or one of those things, in a very, very strong dosage of it. And when he finally weaned himself off it, it was like, oh, I can practice. I feel present. Like I want to practice my instrument. I want to work on music. I want to have a band. I want to do something.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. I don't need this chemical in my body. I don't need 8 hours of being taught a fake history that's going to ignore a lot of the dark shit because my government doesn't want me to know that, hey, it's not all like, right? Like it's, you know what I mean? Like he has something in his heart, and it just, him weaning, and everybody I know that weaned themselves off that shit, it was always for the better. It made them all better musicians because they could be themselves.
Yeah.
They could be their spastic, because the reality is, it's like, that's a person who can think many, many thoughts at the same time and do this with it. Most people can't do that. Most people now can barely keep one thought in their head and stay focused on it.
Oh man, we're in a time now where it's like hard to clamp down on any idea. It's like trying to hold a muscle tight, and it's like, it just won't. what's wrong? It's like you can't focus. And it's because of our phones and so many things and the saturation of everything. And
Yeah. Yeah.
And getting back to music, that's the salvation for us to be able to dive deep into something, some kind of practice, whatever it is, painting,
Yeah.
I have a question for you, like in this idea of where we are right now, because 5 years ago we had a conversation on here, and it's amazing that it was 5 years ago, and we were in the middle of COVID, and we were talking about, oh yes, in these days and times, but now we're in these days and times, 2026, and how important is art and music today?
I would lose the question mark, and I would just leave art is important today.
More important than ever, in my opinion.
I mean, it's always going to be, like if the universe stopped resonating, that's death.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if matter stopped being matter, if the other forces that now there's a great debate of like, well, is dark matter really dark matter? It was just this moniker that because of language, because of word association, because of our paradigms, have we just misunderstood this other phenomena of reality? Because again, one of the richest guys in the world, who's the loneliest man in the world, he thinks all of this is a simulation. And to give him some sort of credit, some god's daydream, a cell in some larger body, a simulation, at that point, you're talking about something so macro, there's no difference for things like us, because we are basically like neutrinos then at that point. So that's a really stupid fucking question to have any sort of opinion on at that point. Just live your fucking life. Right? But let's say it's not. Let's say it's not a simulation. Even if it is a simulation, right? If somebody turns off the computer that's running the simulation's over. When you turn off the game, those characters on the screen, they disappear. They're not on the screen anymore. The screen doesn't save that. It's gone. So if the universe stops resonating, if it stops vibrating, if things stop moving, that is essentially true death. That's universal death.
I really love that. I really love how you express that. The universal human resonance. We're all going off and expressing something with somehow, could even be with a fucking car horn.
Yeah.
But it is expressing, as we know, like on my street here in Philly, everybody's going by with all kinds of forms of expression and honking and music that's loud enough to shake the foundation of your house. And that's all part of it. It's like, hey, I'm here. We're here. It's all good, really, right?
Yeah.
But man, it's like similarly, we're also dealing in an age of AI coming up.
Yeah.
And
it's been with us for a while. I have some tinfoil in the kitchen. I could start wrapping my head soon. If you like, you can go there. But yeah, no, but now, I not to cut you off, but I know what you mean. Sorry.
No,
we were watching Contact right before this, so my head's like all over.
Okay, Contact. Yeah, but I think in terms of like we're talking about art and music for a second and creativity, and the importance of that. And I think for me, it's the importance of it is to be creative, to be human, and the challenge of creating anything with people or by yourself or whatever. And then AI is quickly being laid upon us as something that is being used in creative ways. Not really. I mean, I think creativity is a human function, personally.
Well, I mean, man, oh my God, we don't have enough time. And
I know.
I mean, I still have a little bit of coffee in this thing, but I'm still I was saving the coffee for this moment, so I haven't had a lot of coffee yet today.
Cheers.
Saludos.
A hibiscus rosé premium soda.
Well, that's nice. This is actually still coffee. Imperial has coffee on the rider now, which is nice. So they will provide us a bag of coffee, and you know, sometimes it's like, you know, we usually like, hey, if it can be local, like a local roaster, that's really great. That's awesome. They don't even, you know, but you know, like we just need, like, if you can get like a bag of coffee, we'll make the coffee ourselves, not a problem. You know, now I travel with like a travel press and the whole thing. It's fun.
But these questions, Kenny, I
Yes.
love asking you, because when you say, I don't think we have enough time, that's exactly what I'm talking about, because you're gonna dive all the way in, and that's what I love about you, man. It's
like the van rides where it's like, let's put on a record that we're not going to listen to because he's going to just tirade behind the wheel for 3 hours. No, but getting back to the, thank you for bringing me back to the question before I forgot we were talking about AI. It's tough. Like, let me see. Do I have it? Sorry, I'm like being impulsive right now.
Be impulsive.
It's somewhere. I mean, there's Don Tech. That's another. You know, there's Gibson. Where is Kurzweil? Oh, you know what? I think the Kurzweil book is in the bedroom. I think Julie brought it to the bedroom because I don't see it here. The Singularity book.
Yeah.
I don't see it out here.
Well, what do you want to say about the Singularity?
Well, nothing actually, because the problem with the AI thing in general, and especially too, it's like I actually rely on other people to help keep me abreast of what's happening, either like with researchers, journalists, or friends, or other musicians that I follow up who I know are keeping tabs on these things. For me, the problem with all of it is you have to go back to DARPA's funding of AI in the early 60s, because that's what started all of this. And when you start to realize that a lot of the little loose details on what companies, right? Because DARPA has always been funded by our taxes. Like, you want to know why you can't audit the Pentagon? It's DARPA. That's why. And it used to not be called DARPA. It used to be called ARPA, like Advanced Research. But then it became for military purposes. So you get DARPA. And you know, in DARPA, in and of itself, is the source of a lot of conspiracy theories that you can find online, and especially when I was a teen in my 20s, listening to AM Coast to Coast and getting on the early internet, it was a wild and fun time. Like, trust me. But the reality is that every major corporation that's fucking the world has been funded by DARPA for years. All their seed money was DARPA. A lot of research at major universities and Ivy League schools, DARPA. And AI research was one of those institutions. And now DARPA wasn't the only group of people that were interested in AI, right? Like, later on, there would be other groups of people who would be interested in AI too. And some of those groups of people might be in certain types of files that exist now that kind of reveal to the whole world, like, hey, remember for decades when there were like kind of like crazy, weird people that you don't trust because you think they're like degenerates who keep telling you there's like these weird people who are into really messed up shit, doing terrible things to people, and they're part of this larger cabal that's like a global thing that's been around for a lot longer than we realize. And they're kind of involved in like everything. Somehow they're involved in everything you could think of and imagine. Somehow their money. Yeah. So for me, when people bring up AI, you know, I wanted the Federation. That's what I wanted in my life. My childhood dream was I wanted the Federation. And even if that meant this regimented, uniformed, rules-based way of navigating the galaxy and the universe, so fucking be it. If it meant peace on Earth and traveling the stars, that's what I want. And that's not what we're going to get. All this shit is just about surveilling you and everyone on planet Earth. That's the purpose of all this. I'm not saying you can't make art with AI. I'm not saying that AI can't make art either, because life is life. I don't care if it's silicon based. I don't care if it's carbon based. I don't care if it's some metaphysical fucking energy shit that we don't have a name for. You know, eventually, past our lifetimes, we're going to find out that there's other forms of life that are made up of other types of elements that our scientists and our people couldn't have even imagined. And it's probably going to be smarter than us, because we're the only species I know that purposely fucks itself over, destroys everything. And I'm going to put the blame on a lot of people. We let a handful of people throughout the 200-something thousand years of human history, we have let a handful of people dominate, destroy, and maim everything in their path. You know, let it happen. Let it happen, even though they outnumber those minorities, because we're conditioned to. We have been conditioned to follow whoever has the bone. Whoever has the bone calls the shots. And for whatever reason, the person who has the bone in the beginning of 2001, what do they do with it? Beat the shit out of everybody with it. Not, how do I make this better for all of us? I have an idea. This could be used as a tool. This could be used for construction. This could be used to make something. This could be used to make music. No, what am I going to do? Beat other fucking monkeys over the head because I want to eat first. And it's so long as that is the impulse in one person's heart on this planet, and they have the means and the resources to never stop that, you're never going to change anything. So when we talk about AI, and I look at all the people who are at the helms of it, I don't see any good people at the helms of any of these things.
Yeah.
And it's too late, because this thing is already, so many LLMs have already been doing things that go underreported that long ago should have rang alarm bells. And if this was a different time in a different era, probably would have. It probably would have if this information was more readily available to the public. But, you know, if it was more trendy. But, you know, it's more trendy to talk about certain aspects of issues and problems with AI, but people aren't, like with the data centers. People think that the data centers need to draw this much power so that it can, like, hallucinate a bullshit answer because you didn't want to do a Google search or a whatever search engine search, right? Reality is it's what's his face? Snowden. It's what he told you they were going to do. They want to surveil everything. That's why all these companies have either military contracts or federal government contracts, even though they don't need the money, because they already have billion-dollar investors supporting them. You know, we are in an age now which, you know, guys like Philip K. Dick, guys like William Gibson, you know, Dantec. What's his fucking first name? Is Gautier Dantec? Is that his? No, Maurice Dantec. Sorry, here's the book. I can't grab the book. It's next to Origins. It's next to it. But, you know, all these like speculative these cyberpunk authors, you know, Michael Pondsmith from the cyberpunk game and world, like, and who wrote Cyberpunk Red and all this stuff. You know, they talk about, you know, think of Alien. Think of the Alien series. You know, when you think of what's happening, right, what you're witnessing is a world where it's corporatocracy. It's technocratic corporatocracy. It's oligarchy run by technology and corporations. Yeah. They tell the governments how to establish the laws and the rules for the citizenry. The corporations are the pinnacle. They're the top. The banks and the corps. Like in all these science fictions, whether it's, you know, and for people who may not know Philip K. Dick, if you like Total Recall or A Scanner Darkly or a Minority Report or any of that shit, that's Philip K. Dick.
Yeah.
You know, right? You know, when you're talking about this stuff, that is a common theme with a lot of the fiction in this particular type of science fiction, is that we live in an age where those who control technology as asset and corporatize it through, you know, as an economic tool, they become the dominant force, you know, and that's the age we've been in quietly for a while, you know. And we've you know, especially like, you know, people of certain political equations and read certain types of periodicals or checked them with certain journalists, you're aware of how like lobbying is an easy avenue for think tanks, for super PACs and PACs, for any type of organization or representative to go to committee and subcommittee hearings and petition on behalf of their constituency of whatever corporate or economic or whatever interest they represent, if it's political or cultural, whatever, if it's a PAC or super PAC, right? You know, like they are allowed special privileges that even other people who serve in the federal government or the regular layperson or even a newscaster has no access to. And that's been, is in my entire lifetime, that is how our government has operated. And the adults in the room, we're all aware of this. And some people like brought it up like, yeah, that's the problem. That's definitely an infringement on democracy. That's going to make things harder and harder and harder down the road. And so in my lifetime, I watched NAFTA get created. I watched corporations get the same rights as people. I watched banks who basically destroyed a global economy get completely bailed out because they were too big to fail. You know, the same banks that take whatever money I put into it, invest it into the stock market, make tons of fucking money on it, give me no interest on it. And that's the system that people like me have grown up in. So people younger than me are just like, my whole life, everything in this world you're telling me about is bullshit. So why the fuck am I gonna listen to any of you people? And then, you know, there's some negative aspects of it. Like you see some people who can't tell the difference between AI and a real thing. You know, and don't care. And don't care. I mean, that's the thing. It's like I see a lot of musicians sharing AI stuff, whether it's visual things or audio things, and it's like, oh, this is AI'd. You can hear it. You can hear it. And again, I hate even calling it AI because this isn't really a full intelligence yet. We're not at general, like. Yeah.
You know, it was funny. Last week I was in North Carolina, and my nephew, who you met at our gig down there in Charlotte, he's like, the other day I was listening, I heard this really great blues thing, and I was like, wow, I love this. You know, I downloaded it. He goes, it was fucking AI. Yeah. He goes, it tricked me. I'm like, yeah, it's only the beginning, really, in terms of that.
And, I mean, and it'll get better and better and better at fooling people. And the thing is, I mean, a lot of companies eventually will start replacing a lot of stuff with AI versions of things, like AI rendered versions of our art, our music, our films, our videos, our animations, all that stuff. I mean, I'm seeing it on YouTube now. Like older videos are, when you go back and look at them, and it's like, oh man, maybe it's something with my internet. Like this is looking, the screen, like all the imagery looks weird. Let me check on you know, and I'm realizing, like, even though YouTube got busted last year for like putting AI filters on all the shorts on YouTube, and a lot of content creators reacted to it, and then they rescinded that decision. But now I'm seeing that shit again for videos that I know were not made with AI because they were made prior to us even having, you know, OpenAI or Anthropic or any of these companies. But that's the thing. Getting back into the question, I mean, again, we have a company called fucking Palantir. Did anybody read the fucking book? Did anybody read this book? Does anybody remember what the Palantir represented? Not just how they showed it in the movie, which is good. The movie's darker. The movie is darker because even when the things were created, the people then understood that this could always be used as a potential for evil. And when you find out that in Palantir, in a recent dossier that was released, where in their inner team lingo, they use military jargon to try to keep a sort of codifying language amongst the team. So instead of just speaking in like text speaking code, they also will use like loose military terms, supposedly. You know, like, and these are all people that have never picked up a fucking gun, never went out to some fucking other country where we shouldn't have been in the first place, and fired at somebody else who shouldn't have been there in the first place either. Yeah. Because it's fucking embarrassing to have a species that's been around for 6 fucking figures of years, a couple 100,000 years, and we're still just killing each other for profit.
It's ridiculous.
For control.
Yeah. And I mean, the first thing we learned as musicians when we started traveling the world, if we didn't know already, landing in Japan, landing in Africa, landing in Europe, you name it, is we're all the same, man.
Yeah.
You know,
people.
We're all people, man. And that's the universal thing. And it should be all about love. And what you were saying earlier, like the planet gets along. We're not killing one another. And that's what's happening. You know, we're in the midst of this. And that's why I asked this question about art and music, because sometimes, I talk to friends who are artists and they're like, I feel like what I'm doing doesn't really mean anything in terms of what's actually happening around me now. It feels like it doesn't. And I'm like, well, I feel like it's more important than ever to keep this going. And as you called it, a resonance, I think that's what it is, a human resonance. And that's really important.
They want us to be quiet.
Yeah.
They because, and that's the thing. And I'm going to go out on, I go out on lots of limbs. I'm going to keep going on limbs. I really do believe, I have no facts to support anything I'm about to say, but I really do believe that this money idolatry thing, like once the Templars created the modern banking system, right, between like what was happening in the lands that were being crusaded and plundered, and then how those resources were being spread to the world, and how certain nobles would need to have like IOUs because they couldn't travel around with just bags full of plundered shit. So we'll stack here, you're going to write a certificate, it's going to be notarized and sealed, I'll take that with, right? Once that came into being, which then led to the Medici family, which led to the Rothschild family, which led to all the other big global banking families. Once that became a thing, that's when what we live in now, that's when that system was created. And sure, maybe at one point it was like feudalism and monarchy, or maybe it was a republic, or maybe it was democracy, or maybe it was a capitalism society. It doesn't matter what the fuck you call that system. It doesn't matter what you call the person in charge. The reality is the banks have been running all this shit. I mean, that's why that old saying, like, every war is a banker's war. Because when you go after the fact and you learn the real history of all these wars, you end up finding out how so often, like even in our own history, like with the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, how these banks were funding and fueling both sides and lobbying to politicians to get certain things passed. It's always been this, but it's like when that's a practice for decades and decades and going on centuries, those things compound over time. And now that we live in this age where we've completely normalized narcissism and completely normalized sociopathy, because that's what you see from these hedge funds and the investor class or the Epstein class or the billionaire class, whatever you want to call them. What you're seeing is normalized sociopathy and normalized narcissism is being sold as benchmarks of greatness. Like, these are great, and I'm going to say it, great men. Like, these are great men. And what's great about them? They hoarded wealth like dragons in a mountain hole, like Smaug. They're just sitting on a mountain of gold.
Yeah, it's such a heavy topic. And, it's like, I saw this recently, and I don't remember who said it, but it was something like, what's happening right now with Iran, and I don't know where it is now, $40 billion of bombing. When to feed the whole world only costs $6 billion, can't we do that? Can't we do some of that?
But, it's like when the guys at Exxon did the research and found out like the way that they were extracting oil from the planet was not only costly, but detrimental. And with some quick innovations and changes in how we do things, it may take a couple of years, but we'll maximize profits in the long run, and it'll be better for the environments in which we are drilling. And the CEO at the time said, nah, fuck that, stay the course and bury this research. And it wasn't discovered until like the 2000s, or at least released until the 2000s.
Yeah.
So they knew then, like as one example of many, many, many examples, because it's like, people don't really realize how often so many of the pharmaceutical companies were all chemical companies who were researching all kinds of things that are beyond just medicine or just beyond stuff to preserve food. They were invested in researching all kinds of shit. And so a lot of places in the country have contaminated soil, contaminated water, contaminated well water in places where they can't have, right? Like they rely on well water and it's contaminated. I mean, Palestine, Ohio is still decimated. These people are dying out there. Nobody gives a flying fuck. Flint water still has to get water trucked in. Obama was the president when that happened. That's embarrassing. I don't give a fuck what your politics are. I don't give a fuck who you voted for. I don't give a fuck. Could give a fucking shit. That's embarrassing. In 2026, we got shit in space. We got math. You got fucking, you can call anybody on planet Earth who has a fucking cell phone. Fuck off. That's how you know what is happening now. It's not about why or how. This is evil. And I think most people have a hard time putting things in those terms because we've been sold and told what is evil through our histories, through our entertainment, right? What we agree to as a whole, as cultures and societies throughout the world, we've been told what is evil, not realizing we're looking at evil every fucking day. We're looking at fakeness every fucking day. And to a point where most people, without them knowing, without them realizing, have been indoctrinated by it. You know? And or to a point where it's like, this, once you realize what is happening, it is too existential. It is too hard to bear. Like, you know, I mean, you and I have spoken about, I've definitely gone on tirades that are much heavier than this. And a lot of times when I've gone on tirades like that, you know, I feel when a person is just recoiling because it's overbearing and it's too much. And I know I get super angst and intense.
Well, no, it's like, you know, for me listening after a while, it's just, I'm full there. I can't take any more in.
Bandwidth, you know, for me, it's like, these are things that I like sit and ruminate and think about when I'm meditating, like when I'm doing other things or I'm practicing something or playing a video game or just working on the computer. I'm thinking about these things and going back. I
think a reality of all this is getting back to why we're musicians and the awareness of all these things. It's in a weird way like a modern day blues is what we are expressing as musicians, whether it's metal or whatever. It's kind of a reaction to all this knowledge, you know, and that's where it comes from.
I mean, and especially those kinds of musics, like, I mean, my old metal band, I mean, we were like Resolution 15 for sure was like far more current politics, politically active, socially active. You know, we did outreach, you know, we were all very much that vein. And now I wouldn't call Imperial, we're not a political band at all. But there is a good chunk of our lyrical content, which I don't write. I don't write lyrics for any bands. But that's like the other guys in the band, they write about this stuff. And, you know, Steve is very knowledgeable about a lot of different things. And Zach has insider knowledge on certain things about New York society that those guys can then write about. Where
I'm very interested in that side of your band, that particular band's very interesting. Because they're very interested in, like, you know, just like when you did your video, I think it was on the Empire State Building, right? Mm-hmm. And just some of the histories of that building, you know, they're kind of touching on all of that stuff. It's been around a long time.
Yeah, and a lot of the other songs, older songs as well, like, you know, some of our fans, like, it's interesting, like some of our fans, like, they will superimpose their social political views on our music and then see us from that perspective. And oftentimes it's like, you'll have somebody who's like from as far left as you can get to like somebody who's like diehard libertarian, and they love the lyrics, but they're interpreting it through that, whatever their paradigmatic identity is, you know, because again, we still live in this age where people are very much, because of the social media, because of the constant screen, what is my identity, who am I, what is my identity thing, like what you associate as, or it can be categorized as like, oh, I'm you know, of this ethnicity, of this skin tone, of this, you know, gender or this sexual orientation, right? It becomes so much of this is what I am, as opposed to like, this is a detail of a greater whole, right? A lot of people they have the habit of just superimposing themselves onto whatever it is that they are engaged in, instead of like, well, what did that artist intend by that film or that lyric or by that poem? You know, I'm sure somebody like Ursula must, God, I can only imagine, like, because I mean, her lyrics, it's like it's so open and encompassing, and I always wonder, like, I wonder if she deals with an audience member that may, because they are very much trapped in the paradigm, as a lot of people are, is there this myopic view on what she's communicating, like not just with the words, but that like thing that comes out of her, it's like I don't know what it is. It's just it does this, when she's doing her
I feel
thing.
like quite often she's prophetic in her poetry, and
Yeah.
having worked with her for so long, wow, there's just songs. It's like, where is this coming from? It's coming through her,
Yeah.
something like that. And there might be some poems that you've been around for decades. I've been with her for 30 years, and all of a sudden I'm like, think of a poem from 30 years ago, and like, holy shit, and it's right now, and
Yeah.
she was describing something. Wow, that's a whole thing,
And that's the thing too. It's like, talking about your friend earlier who's feeling hopeless. It's anybody who can make a joyful noise, and I don't just mean you could pick up an instrument and you technically know how to do a thing and it sounds good. Like, make that thing where it's like, even if you're a fucking shit musician, but you pick up your instrument, you play your song, people feel something. Everybody has a gift.
Yes.
All hands on deck now.
Yeah.
Now. And that's the thing, again, because of the materialism matrix, because of the age of the idolatry and narcissism that we live in, people think that if I am not recognized by my peers or by an audience, or if I don't have a quantitative number I can associate with what I'm doing, that this is worthless, meaningless, or a failure. And that is a lie of the fucking most evil thing that is happening on this earth right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's
by design. It's by design. It's because then that's when the AI comes in to replace us.
Yeah.
When we give up.
Yeah.
And that's when the vibration doesn't continue forth. When that happens.
It's like we all have a reason to be here. And we have to find what our path is at some age. Hopefully some do find it. And I've heard people say that the ones that did not find it went and worked for a corporation and they gave up their dream for a salary, Yeah. But if you were lucky enough to know what you think you're supposed to be doing on this planet and are doing it, that's the ride,
But that's the tragedy of it, is that deep down, everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing.
I think
but
that's right.
They think they have to survive. They think they have to be successful. They think they have to make it. They think they have to be a peer, or no matter what it is. There's this idea, there's this vision that somehow has to be adhered to. And that's a creation of the ego. Because everybody has, and I don't mean gift like talent. I mean, like, some people can discern. Some people are prophetic. Some people are healers. Some people, and they need a conduit to do that thing, and right. And it's like that thing where musicians talk, and that's the thing that drives me fucking crazy when people talk about flow state. Because to me,
let's talk about that.
Because to me, when I hear a lot of people like in the music world, or in the sort of more like sort of yogini world, or these different worlds, when they talk about this, they're talking about themselves.
Are you talking about zone?
What?
Are you talking about being in the zone when you say flow state?
I mean, that's yeah. I mean, there's being in the zone, but then there's this other thing. And that's that thing when you've heard musicians where it's like, when you see guys that are in the zone and they're just fucking, this shit's burning, shit's killing. And you make that kind of face like, yeah. But then there's that other thing where even if you're in a completely secular situation, you're in a fucking scuzzy bar, everyone's hammered and drunk, but everybody walks away from that experience feeling something more than just, oh, that band was killing. That's what people call flow state. And that has nothing to do with the individual. And it never has. That is, you're syncing all of this.
I
It's in
agree.
alignment in the moment,
Yeah, thank you.
and it allows the spirit to move. It allows I've always called it a vortex, because in my mind, that's I there's a thing that I start seeing, and I know once I start seeing that thing that I'm gonna go away soon. I'm gonna go away soon, and something's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And we're all gonna go on this, and it's only real when you know that everybody's, or at least when two or more
We've
are
done
in this place. Exactly.
We've been there, and also with Kurt's band, me, Kurt, and Gensis got there many times, and that's a place. It's like I called it like sphere music. Like we were inside of a 3-dimensional system, and it almost didn't matter what we played because we weren't thinking, and there was no ego. We were just playing.
None of you guys were there, and that's that thing. It's like, people think that that's only destined for certain musicians. And that's not true. That's for all of us. That is for all human beings on planet Earth.
Yeah.
All human beings can do this.
That's
and
right.
What's been sold for a very long time is a packaged corporate version of it that only serves to serve the self, to serve the ego, to serve the narcissism. It has nothing. It's if there's a higher power and supreme being, that force is existing in that moment, right? And there's so many Aboriginal and folk musics all over the world where the whole purpose of it is to create that state of being.
Absolutely.
And if you go to any of those like Santeros or any of those other people, they're not going to tell you, oh, that's me fucking kicking ass on the congas. They're not going to tell you that.
No.
They're communicating with their divine God that they serve and love and adore.
Well,
doesn't matter
ultimately,
what I think about that.
That's what it's about. That's what it is about. I think when we want to say we want to be creative musicians, we want to create, it's not from an ego place. It's from, you want to find this place of wonder, or you want to get to that spiritual space, that sacred space, or the zone or the sphere where you're not there. I think that's what it is. It's something like that.
Yeah. And again, sphere is a great way.
What was that?
No, I was saying, like, and the sphere is a great way of saying it, because it's like all the musicians I met over the years who, speaking about this kind of stuff, everybody has their own this that they're talking about when they go to that place where they leave their body and something happens. And it doesn't happen all the time, even with the people that you can make them that is something where at that moment something needed to communicate whatever it needed to communicate in that moment. That idea needed to exist. I mean, it's why even in a very metatextual sense, and I've told like colleagues and friends of mine, and even some students, where it's like, hey, listen, like if there's things that in my life as a musician, as a drummer, ideas, concepts that I don't get to, I don't worry about that anymore, because that idea was never mine. That idea, somebody else is going to hear that too, and they're going to run with the ball, and I guarantee they'll do it better than I ever could. And even in my 30s, I've found drummers online that I follow now, like oh my god, like I'm so bad with names, but like like guys where it's like Chris Proproda, or like Jonathan. Oh god, what is his last name? He's fucking amazing. Oh man, this is so embarrassing. Anyway. There's a fuck ton of drummers out there where it's like, oh, fuck. See, that guy heard it too, and he's killing it. He's doing it better than I could have. If I had all the time in the world to practice on, I wouldn't do it as good as this guy's doing it. He heard it too. It's like when I was a kid growing up listening to like guys like Holdsworth or Goodsall, it's like, how come these guys aren't household names like all these fucking hair metal guys? I don't understand. But now we're in an age where there's people that are 15 and 20, and they're like, hey, man, so here's my tutorial video on how to play like Holdsworth solo and secrets. And then they're fucking doing it. And they're doing it. And they love it. And the music speaks to them. And it doesn't sound strange and foreign. The way when I was a 5 and 6 year old and not playing music, and I would hear him with Lifetime or hear his solo records and be like, I don't get why is this weird? But then this other band is not weird.
Well, check this out. When I was maybe 12 or 13, my friend in Hamilton, Ohio, took me to his house, and his brother, he said his brother had some records. So we go to the house, and he pulls out Cream live. So we're listening to some of that, and Eric is blowing, and Jack is ripping, and Ginger, and all this. And then he takes that off, and he goes, "This is this other record my brother had." And it was Mahavishnu Orchestra. I thought it originally was Birds of Fire, but now I realize it was Intermounting Flame that he put on. And I still remember looking at the jacket with John with his headphones off, with his eyes to the top of the studio ceiling, and he's back with his black Les Paul. I think it was a black Les Paul, ripping. And we heard that music, and we're like, you know, and even as a little kid, I remember thinking, oh, Eric Clapton, John McLaughlin, you know, Hendrix, they're all the same, you know, because his brother perceived that it was still like, you know, blowing, and it is. So it was very interesting, the crossover in diffusion and how that happened. And, you know, it's that thing.
Dude, yeah.
The point is lost, but the story was there.
No, but it's keying into people who were, you know, in that sense, you know, those were people that were exploring and searching things and trying to communicate what was happening. You know, again, it's, you know, when you think about like, yeah, music was so fucking rad in the 60s and 70s. Like so much music was like even pop, like this is the most bubblegum shit was like, this shit's still killing. Like, you know what I mean?
All of
the
it.
the most happy sounding R&B you ever heard is still fucking banging. Like, you know what I mean? It's like everything's killing. But what was happening in the world? Like, you know, we're now like, this is already like well deep into like, like military corporations and banks are going to just keep wars happening all over the world. And African Americans are still like, hey, can you please not beat us in the streets and hose us down and segregate us and do fucked up shit to us because we only helped build your country and you didn't ask to be here, you brought us here, and then you shat on us for centuries. Like, can we please, can we have some rights, please? Like, hey, can I marry this other person that I love? And what the fuck is your business in my business? Like, hello? Like, and not to mention, like, you know, ARPA became DARPA, and they are already starting to get millions of dollars in funding for all kinds of tech that, like, hey, we get to benefit from, right? Like, we got internet now, we got fucking cell phones and predator drones and AI and Google and Amazon and all the American tech companies and all the American computer companies and the telecommunications companies, right? They got all this money to make this wonderful grand world that we live in now. Like, right? Like, there was so much going on.
We have speeding cameras on Broad Street that give people tickets for driving over 25 miles an hour. You know, we have it all. It's so good.
We have it all.
So
we have it all. Like, all of our devices are spying on us all the time. All the companies that we do business with are selling our data to fucking criminals and scam artists. It's a wonderful time.
Speaking of data, we should remind everybody that we have 3 shows coming up.
Oh, we do.
Before we sign off. It's a strange segue, but this band is PAKT is playing 3 shows. Piermont, New York, August 8th. Johnny Brendas, August 9th. And Julie Slick's going to be opening. We're doing a duo and then a super jam that night. It's going to be amazing. And then we're going to be playing The Bitter End, 8/11. And we play at 8 p.m. that night, as I recall. Yes, we're gonna take the early slot, and then Khem will do the late slot since Matt has to come in from another. He will have come back from Portugal, like I think the day before, and then he has like a double header the next day. He's guy's a tank. Well, Kenny, dude, I would like to talk more, but we've already eclipsed 2 hours. Yeah, no, this is like on my end. We're at 2 hours. We're just getting started in a way. We're just getting into the good stuff. But I mean, I still have some coffee to drink. So let's do part 2. I'm gonna sign off for now, and we hope everybody will come out. Also, we have a new release It's called PKT NYC. It just came out today, and you can get that at 1K Recordings Bandcamp, and that'll help us greatly with our expenses for van costs and things like that for this run coming up. So
Definitely.
grab it if you can.
It will go such a long way.
Yeah, grab that, and it's really a great set. I think you'll enjoy it. But Kenny, it's been great hanging as always.
Dude, likewise, man.
Uh,
We get to do it in real pretty soon.
I look forward to that.
Man, yes, same here.
So signing off, Searching for Sparks, I'm Tim Motzer, and for Kenny Grohowski, thank you and good evening.
Take care, y'all.
Bye.